6:40 in the morning, coffee in one hand, keys in the other, and you catch your own reflection in the tinted window of the truck you lease but tell people you own. Your phone buzzes. Tyler, again, a photo of his new watch, no caption needed. You get in anyway. The payment is due either way. There's a bill for mornings like that, and it never shows up on any statement. Nobody sends you a late notice for it. We call it the display cost, the price of looking like you've already made it. By the end of this, you'll know exactly how much of your life you've already paid toward it. Stay with me, because in a few minutes, you're going to watch 18 years of a man's life play out in front of you, a man named Tyler, and see exactly where every dollar of that display cost actually went. Some of it is going to sound closer to home than you'd like. Tyler was 23 when he got the job. A mid-size marketing firm downtown. Decent starting salary, a cubicle with a window he was proud of for exactly 1 week before he stopped noticing it. Nobody told him what to do with the first real paycheck of his life, so he did what felt obvious. He looked around the office, clocked what everyone else was driving, and leased a black sedan 2 days later. Nothing dramatic, nothing that looked, from any single angle, like a mistake. Just a young man matching his life to the room he was standing in. That's the part nobody warns you about. The display cost never arrives as one bad decision. It arrives as a dozen reasonable ones, spread out over years, each of them so small on its own that none of them ever feel like the thing you'll spend the next 2 decades paying for. By 25, the sedan had a roommate. A leather jacket he told himself he needed for client meetings. A gym membership at the place 2 blocks from the office. The one with the juice bar and the low lighting, because the one near his apartment felt like admitting something. None of it was extravagant. That was the trick of it. Extravagant would have been easy to catch. This was just upkeep. 26 was the credit card. It started as a backup, the way they always do. A dinner he couldn't quite afford the week rent, and the lease payment landed on the same Friday. He paid it off almost in full the next month. Almost. The gap between what he owed and what he paid stopped closing after that, quietly, a little wider every few months, and he stopped checking the number because checking it never actually helped. 28 was the year he started seeing someone he actually liked, the kind of liking that made him want the version of his life to hold up under closer inspection. Weekend trips he put on the card because paying for it later felt like a smaller problem than looking careful about money on a second date. A restaurant he couldn't really justify, twice a month, because canceling would have meant explaining why, and explaining why felt worse than the number on the receipt. None of it was about her. She never once asked for any of it. It was about the version of himself he was scared she'd see if he let the mask slip for even one Tuesday. By 29, Tyler was the guy at every gathering people assumed had it figured out. Best apartment of the group, the one with the skyline view he could technically no longer picture the layout of without checking his phone for the address, because he was rarely home long enough to actually live in it the way the photos suggested. Best watch. Best stories about the best restaurants. People liked being around him, and Tyler liked being liked, and the two things had quietly become the same transaction in his mind. Here's the part that matters, the part underneath the parking lot and the group chat and the compliments. Every one of those purchases wasn't just money leaving Tyler's account. It was money that stopped being able to work for him, permanently. The lease payment, the credit card minimum, the gym, the apartment premium for a view he was too busy to look at. All of it was going somewhere, every single month, on a schedule Tyler never chose and could no longer skip. We have a name for what that schedule does to you. We call it the compliance overhead, and it's the exact amount of fixed cost in your life that quietly removes your ability to say no. Not no to a purchase, no to a job, no to a boss, no to a version of your life you'd actually choose if the bill weren't already due on the 1st. By 31, Tyler hated the job. Not dramatically, not in a way he'd have said out loud at a happy hour. But the account manager role had turned into 11-hour days, and a boss who took credit for work that wasn't his, and Tyler stayed anyway, because the lease was due on the 4th, the apartment was due on the 1st, and the number on the credit card statement had a shape now that made any gap in income feel less like an inconvenience and more like a fall, with no floor underneath it. He got the promotion that year. Everyone congratulated him. Nobody knew it wasn't ambition that got him there. It was arithmetic. He could not afford to be the guy who didn't get promoted. If this is landing so far, a like actually helps more than you'd think. It's the only way this finds the people it's actually for. 32 was the year Tyler's old college roommate, a guy named Dave who'd always been a little quieter than everyone else in that friend group, asked Tyler if he wanted in on something early. Dave was starting a small logistics software company, nothing flashy, just 3 people in a spare bedroom, and he was raising a small amount from people he trusted before he raised it from anyone else. Tyler wanted in. He believed in it, actually, more than he'd believed in almost anything in years. He ran the number Dave needed against what he had sitting anywhere he could reach without a penalty, and the answer came back the same 3 times he checked it. He didn't have it. Not because he didn't earn enough. Because 11 years of Upkeep had already claimed it, one reasonable month at a time, long before Dave ever asked the question. He told Dave he'd think about it, and then he let the silence answer for him, the way people do when the real answer is one they don't want to say out loud. 2 years later, that spare bedroom had 11 employees and a lease on an actual office. Tyler still thinks about it sometimes, in the specific way you think about a door that closed so quietly you didn't notice it happening until you tried to open it again. 33 was the year his mother's knee gave out for good, the kind of surgery that needed someone there for 6 weeks, not 6 days. Tyler wanted to go. He ran the numbers on his lunch break in the stairwell of his office, 3 separate times, and landed on the same answer each time. He couldn't take 6 weeks unpaid. He couldn't take even 2. The lease, the apartment, the card, all of it needed the exact paycheck he'd be walking away from, and there was nothing sitting anywhere that could stand in for it, even for a month. He sent flowers. He called every night. He told his mother work was impossible right now, which was true in a way he didn't say out loud, and true in a way that had nothing to do with his job title, and everything to do with 11 years of small, reasonable purchases that had quietly taken the choice away from him before he ever knew there was one to make. That's the display cost, not the sedan, not the watch, the 6 weeks he didn't have, at the exact moment he needed them. If you're not subscribed yet, this is a good time. New videos every week, and this is exactly the kind of thing we get into. Let's do the accounting on it, because the number is worse than it feels in the moment. And it's worse for a reason most people never sit down long enough to see. Across those 18 years, between the lease, the card, the apartment premium, and the small recurring upkeep of looking the part, Tyler moved somewhere around $1,100 a month toward the display cost, every month, without missing one. That's not a guess built to scare you. That's close to what it actually costs to maintain a life built to be seen rather than lived in. Over 18 years, that's north of $200,000, gone. The ordinary way. One reasonable month at a time. Here's the number that actually matters, though. If that same $1,100 a month had gone into a low-cost index fund instead, starting the same month as that first sedan lease, at an ordinary long-term market return, Tyler wouldn't just have avoided losing the $200,000. He'd be sitting on something closer to $450,000 right now, quietly working, whether he thought about it or not. That's not $200,000 of difference. That's closer to $650,000 of difference between the version of Tyler who's real and the version who redirected the exact same money towards something that compounds, instead of something that depreciates the moment you drive it off the lot. $650,000 is the 6 weeks with his mother. It's the option to say no to the boss who took credit for his work. It's a version of 33 where the stairwell math comes out differently. None of this means live small and call it virtue. That's not what this is about. There was a woman in Tyler's same graduating class, same starting salary almost to the dollar, who drove a car so unremarkable nobody at any reunion has ever once mentioned it. Nobody at those reunions knows what her account looks like either, And that's the entire point. She was never hiding poverty. She was just never running the display cost in the first place. And 18 years of not running it looks, from the outside, exactly like 18 years of nothing happening at all. It means the difference between Tyler and someone who ends up somewhere else entirely usually isn't income, and it usually isn't willpower. It's whether the money is moving towards something that produces more of itself, or towards something that exists purely to be looked at by people who forget what they saw within a week. That's the quiet position, the one nobody claps for. It doesn't look like anything from the outside, which is exactly why almost nobody chooses it on purpose. It's the version of a life where the account grows in a direction nobody at the office ever asks you about, and where, when the phone call about your mother's knee actually comes, the answer to, "Can you be there?" is simply yes, without a stairwell, without 3 separate versions of the same math, without a single reasonable purchase from 11 years ago, quietly making the decision for you in advance. If you want us to run these exact numbers against something more specific to you, a house, a wedding, a business you're thinking about starting, put it in the comments, and we'll build the next one around it. If you want to know exactly how much your own display cost is running you, it's not complicated math, and you probably already know the number if you're honest with yourself for 90 seconds. First, name it. Add up anything you're paying every month specifically because of how it looks, rather than what it does for you. The lease instead of the reliable used car. The apartment premium for the view. The card balance that only exists because Upkeep got ahead of income at some point and never quite came back. Write down the actual number. Most people never do this one step, and it's the only one that requires nothing but honesty. Second, redirect a piece of it. Not all of it, not tomorrow, not in a way that makes your life unrecognizable overnight. Even a quarter of that number, moved somewhere that compounds instead of somewhere that depreciates, changes the shape of your life a decade out more than the other 3 quarters ever did. Third, automate the part you redirect, the same day you decide it, so it moves before the version of you that wants to look good in front of the room gets a vote. That's the entire difference between Tyler's 18 years and someone else's. Not more income, not more discipline in the moment. Just money that moves on a schedule you chose, instead of a schedule the room chose for you. Whatever that number ends up being, that's the compliance overhead currently deciding, in advance, how much freedom you actually have the next time life asks you a real question on short notice. Tyler's still out there, by the way. Still leasing something newer every few years. Still the best stories at the gathering. If you asked him, he'd tell you he's doing fine, and he'd mean it, because fine is genuinely how it feels from inside 18 years of reasonable decisions. Nobody at those gatherings knows about the stairwell, or the 6 weeks he didn't have, or the spare bedroom that turned into 11 employees without him. He's never once brought any of it up, because there's no version of that story that lands at a party the way a new watch does, and because saying it out loud would mean admitting the math to himself before he's ready to. That's the part that makes the display cost so easy to keep paying. It never announces itself as a loss. It just quietly becomes the room you can't leave, the answer you can't give, the 6 weeks you didn't have, dressed up the whole time as a life that was clearly, visibly, going well. If any of this hit closer to home than you expected, send it to someone who needs to hear it before they're 18 years in, instead of 1. Sometimes the whole difference between Tyler's version of this and someone else's is just noticing the display cost before it has a decade to compound behind their back. The next time something shows up that would make the room notice you, it's worth asking, quietly, just to yourself, whether you're buying it or whether it's buying you. Only one of those two ever pays you back.